Okay, good morning, everybody. Time being 9 a.m., I'd like to call today's Judicial and Public Safety Committee meeting to order. My name is Myrna Molina. It is Thursday, May 13th, 2021. I will be chairing today's meeting. First item on the agenda is call to order. If I can please have roll call.
Brown,
Brown here.
Gums,
Gums here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Sanchez,
Here.
Shepro, Davis,
Davis here.
Molina.
Present. Okay, thank you, everybody. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from our last meeting of April 15th. I hope everybody had time to review the minutes. If there aren't any comments or questions,
Leonard moves.
Brown seconds.
Mr. Leonard moves, Mr. Brown seconds. May I please have roll call?
Brown, Gums,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shepro, Davis.
Davis, yes.
Approved.
Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is public comment. Did we have anybody in the public wishing to speak or anybody who signed up? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. We have our monthly financial reports on file. Any comments or questions on that? I think we can move on to our KingCom. Ms. Guthrie, good morning. Are you?
Good morning. Exciting time for KingCom. We have a lot of projects going on. We have a proposed go-live date of June 1st for our StarCom project. So we have been in the process. Our councils are installed. We're in the process of programming, disseminating the radios, working on training. A big thank you to Lieutenant David Wolf from the Sheriff's Office and also IT Rogers Group. We did a video training that we can disseminate to all our agencies with a how-to on how to use the radios. So it's been a very busy time. In addition, we are getting our new communication center furniture next week. So there will be a lot going on at this campus here. Thanks for building maintenance for working with us to find a solution. We need to stage the furniture somewhere. So we will be using the old coroner's office for a week just to stage the furniture and then carry it into KingCom because it is a live project. We will be there the entire time while this process happens. So we will have 8 new positions in the communications center and a new layout that will work well for our team. Our current furniture is from 2006, and I'm thrilled that we were able to use some of our ETSB 911 surcharge reserves to pay for this project, so it's not coming from our budget. And our monthly reports are on file. Once again, like in March, it does show that we have a significant increase, almost 2,000 calls for service over April of last year, but that is directly related to COVID. We saw about a 2,000 call for service decrease last year. I think March, April, and May were our downtime months. It's the largest decrease we've seen. So we're just coming back from that, and we're trending very, very close to normal activity for this type of year. And that's all I have today.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions for Ms. Guthrie? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we will move on to our sheriff's report.
Morning.
Jane, good morning.
Sheriff's PowerPoints are back, everybody.
Yay.
And I promise this one will be brief. And unfortunately, Ms. Mosser isn't in the room for us to banter on it, so I'm just waiting for IT to throw it up there for me. Is that? Thank you. So we do have to recognize that this week is National Police Week. So if you see a police officer, please thank a police officer for their service. Of course, in Kane County, we talk all the time about how we're so fortunate to have such highly trained, educated professionals in this line of service. So the negative stuff you see on the 10 o'clock news or on social media is not reflected here in Kane. I do want to go over just a couple of unforecasted expenses we've had this fiscal year. So the multi-purpose building, we've had to pay out of pocket on quite a few things. We're expecting to go over into 6 figures in the near future here as the building gets rounded off and we move in. Hopefully the grants from the state will come through and compensate us for that. COVID testing that ended back in February, so that's December through February. That's the total price tag on that. We have put that in through CARES Act funding. And fortunately, we do have new CARES Act funding, so we do expect to be reimbursed for that, as well as Department of Corrections prisoner holding. So these are people who are sentenced. We've talked about this before, Judicial and Public Safety, and Department of Corrections not accepting those sentenced people. And this is our cost to our taxpayers here. So the state has passed on this expense to us, and we do not expect to hear anytime soon about reimbursement from the state for that. So I just want you to have that on your radar as you're looking at our budget. We're very excited to get through quite a few projects. The Starcom radio upgrade, as Michelle mentioned, will be live June 1st. That was a big lift that took quite a lot of work, and $3.5 million that didn't go onto the taxpayers' back. So we're very excited to finally go from a 1960s or 70s radio system to a modern radio system that everyone else in Kane County can finally communicate together on. Our body-worn and integrated dash cam system is fully operational and in place. And we have a new system that digitizes all of our paper reports. Yes, we still have paper reports at the sheriff's office for quite a few things. So now these will all be digitized, and we'll communicate with our electronic reporting system, and we expect that to happen around June 1st. So all very excited for these upgrades at the sheriff's office. And we continue to work on our e-payroll implementation, jail, courthouse, and camera system upgrade, which we have out for RFP, closes in just a week or so. We're still working on getting U.S. Marshals into the detainees into the facility. I know finance is anxious for that revenue for the county, but the Metropolitan Correctional Center still has open space due to COVID. So they have not placed any of their detainees with us yet. And we expect to be fully operational in the multi-purpose building in about 30 to 45 days once we get some final equipment put in there. As part of National Police Week, I do have to recognize our social workers. We have one here with us, Michelle Krupp. Nicole Krupp. I'm looking at Michelle's head. Nicole, could you stand up for us? I'm sorry. I won't do that again. So I've introduced you guys to Nicole before. She launched this program because of the amount of work that she has done starting in November with our new special victims team under Sergeant Brandon McInnes. You see the workload that they've put out, and they've been on call 24/7. There she is. Now we can banter about my PowerPoint. Yes. So again, being on call 24/7, going out street side with our deputies has had a huge impact on so many unfortunate victims, from juveniles to domestic violence victims to even senior victims. Last night, they jumped on a lady who was getting released from the jail who needed dire services for housing. And this was about 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. And within an hour or so, they had her placed in housing for the evening, and a successful outcome, hopefully today, on her last day in court. So great job, Nicole. And I do have to recognize her as part of National Police Week. I'm going to move over to the podium here. Embarrass people. All right. So today you're going to receive a life-saving commendation. Since joining the Sheriff's Office and launching our social worker program within the newly formed Special Victims Team, you have improved the lives of many of our marginalized citizens, saved dozens from violent domestic abuse, and established a new trend for how law enforcement should respond to our most serious offenses. Most notably, your team, Sergeant Brandon McInnes, and you engaged in a severe domestic violence situation in unincorporated Plato Township that had been occurring for years. The victim has been severely injured by her spouse on repeated occasions and historically has refused to cooperate with law enforcement. Sheriff's deputies have been constantly frustrated by the abuse and lack of assistance to prosecute by the victim, and it was often thought that one day he may kill her. After the latest incident, you and Sergeant McInnes worked tirelessly to make the victim feel secure and comfortable in confiding with law enforcement. As a result, she provided a full statement about the violent attack on her. The offender was criminally charged, and most importantly, you were able to assist her in acquiring an order of protection and the housing of her and her children at a safe location. Nicole, your work has set the gold standard for relentless compassion and the new model for law enforcement. Kane County is better and safer for your service. I'm giving her what our deputies wear on their uniforms. It's a life-saving bar, and she's taking our deputy test. So No pressure, but we'd love to have her on board too. So, yeah, please. Thank you. I forgot my clicker. Next up, for National Police Week, of course, we have to recognize Sergeant Nick Wolf. Come on up, Sergeant. At least I didn't call you Michelle Wolf. That's. There we go. And yes, that is the same person, okay? Sergeant Nick Wolf, on May 10th, 2021, you and your bloodhound, Aaron, responded to the report of a missing 15-year-old autistic child in Sugar Grove who had wandered away from home without shoes or appropriate clothing. Officers had been searching for hours prior to your arrival and the deployment of Aaron. Due to relentless training with your bloodhound, you were able to track to a thick brush area where you located the child asleep. Temperatures were dropping into the 30s that evening, and if you and Aaron were not called to the scene, the child most likely would have perished. Sergeant Wolf, your career has been based on the unwavering dedication to duty that you display in all of your work. The citizens of Kane County are much safer for your service. You bet. Can I have a box to stand on? Thanks, sir.
Very nice.
Again, folks, thanks for giving me that minute to honor those guys and all the deputies at the Kane County Sheriff's Office. Great people. Yes, you can leave. Get back to work. All right, we have 3 resolutions to cover today. First one up is, I don't know if they want to, I think everybody has them on their agenda already. The first one is going to be a transfer of more funds to the state's attorney's budget from our budget. So she can acquire a juvenile justice attorney. Again, this is global support of proper public safety here in Kane, and we're happy to help Ms. Moster make her office better and support the citizens of Kane.
Wonderful. If I can have a motion and a second to discuss this resolution.
Leonard, so moves.
Brown seconds.
Mr. Leonard moves, Mr. Brown seconds. Please go ahead, Sheriff.
So it'll be a transfer of $85,000 from our court security fund to the state's attorney's office. This will be the last transfer that we see this year of this nature.
Wonderful. Any comments or questions regarding this resolution? Hearing none. Okay, I can have roll call, please.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shepro, Davis,
Davis, yes.
passes.
Thank you. This resolution will move on to finance for further discussion. Sheriff, you want to go ahead and introduce your second resolution?
Next one is an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Wayne for police coverage. They've decided to discontinue their midnight shift police coverage, so 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 7 days a week. So that, of course, defaults to the county sheriff. For reference, DuPage County Sheriff's Office is also passing a similar IGA as Wayne sits on that border between DuPage and Kane and goes into both counties. So this does not come with any return compensation to the county.
Okay, may I have a motion and second to discuss and possibly approve?
Leonard
Davis
moves.
moves.
Mr. Davis will move, Mr. Leonard will second. Any comments or questions regarding this resolution?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Brown, go ahead.
I've had, I guess I could say, some conversation with the sheriff on this resolution. I'm going to support it. As I understand it, the sheriff's department is liable, responsible, and obligated to handle this. I'm not happy about the fact that there's not going to be any compensation to go along with it. That's one of the concerns I have, although I understand, as I said, we're talking with the sheriff, we don't have the authority to enforce compensation. But I also am concerned that what is going to happen in the future, not only with Wayne, but with other municipalities or villages, if they, for whatever reason, decide they want to cut back on their police departments, whether it be a financial reason or whatever the reason is the sheriff's office then going to have to pick up these duties without any compensation? Not only is that going to be a hardship on the sheriff's office, but I also don't think it's fair for the rest of the residents of the county that are paying their taxes towards their municipalities or their villages to provide police protection for them through their entities that now are going to be paying for the police protection of Wayne because they've decided to cut back on their force. So I'm going to support it because as I understand, it's an obligation that the county has, but I'm not happy with it.
Okay, any further thoughts or comments? Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question for the sheriff and maybe the state's attorney. Is this a mandated obligation or just an obligation?
Yes, it is a mandated obligation by state law. The Village of Wayne feels comfortable having this IGA. We have a similar one with Fox Valley Park District Police. And of course, we provide police coverage to villages like Maple Park overnight when their police department is not on duty.
Thank you.
Madam
one
Chair
other
Gums with a
comment.
quick question. Oh, go ahead.
Mrs. Gums.
I can go back to Mr. Leonard. Do you have a
I'm all
follow-up?
done. Thank you very much.
Okay. I just had a quick question for the sheriff. Calls for service, what do they look like overnight there? Are they substantial or minimal?
That's a great question, Michelle. So they pulled the data for me, and in 2020, they had 30 calls for service all year overnight. The majority of those were alarm calls. 0 arrests were made on any incidents.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, did you have another question?
Oh, I was going to ask Mr. Shepro if he was on today, but it doesn't look like he's on. Ken, are you on yet? Doesn't appear as he is. What I was going to ask was, and I've already asked the sheriff this, and he says, not me, it's the elected officials of Wayne that would need to answer that question. And since Ken represents that area, I was going to ask him, but I'll just put it out there. Are the residents of Wayne aware of this change? Because obviously with the sheriff only having, 6 or 7 officers on duty to
Yes.
cover 550 some square miles, the response time for the residents of Wayne, even though it's not a large amount of calls, the response time could potentially be a lot different than it is with their own police force.
Yeah, I agree. And I think those are all great points, Mr. Brown. And I guess to piggyback on what your original thought was where does this end? Is there any, Ms. Mosser, I'll put you on the spot about this. Is there anything that the county can do to kind of protect itself if other villages or municipalities decide that they only want to fund their police department until 11 p.m.?
So I think the best thing that we could do to protect ourselves is this intergovernmental agreement, because essentially they're telling us what they're going to do, and we're going to do whatever we can to obviously back them up. This is protecting us from that portion. I think the sheriff is going to be evaluating these cases as they go. So if issues are starting to arise, then obviously we're going to intervene with their assistance to bring it back to Wayne if that's something that has to happen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further comments or questions regarding this resolution? Okay, hearing and seeing none, may I please have roll call?
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Thank you. Okay, Sheriff Hain, let's go ahead and move on to the last resolution for today. for you.
Final resolution will be the continued security at the front door of Building A. This is at the request of Madam Chair, Human Resources and Building Maintenance. So they project that the construction of the new security measures will not be complete until the end of this year, so into December. Of course, this is an overtime rate detail that our deputies are providing there. So that's a median average of $90 an hour to continue this through December at their request. That will be 880, I lost that number. It's either 808 or 880 working hours. So this is a resolution that moves funds from reserve funds to our overtime budget to be able to compensate them for that, to the total of $103,000.
Thank you. And just to clarify, the resolution we passed in, was it January, covered us until June?
That's correct.
Okay. So I guess I'll have first I request a motion in a second to discuss this further.
Sanchez moves.
Leonard seconds.
Okay, Mr. Sanchez moves and Mr. Leonard seconds. Mr. Sanchez?
I just have a question about the title because it refers to an assignment for the Kane County Treasurer's Office. So I don't know if that's just like it was old language or I would imagine it would be, Kane County Government Center Building A.
Yeah, it was at the original request of the treasurer, and they wish to continue that detail, is my understanding as well. So we just left the title
Okay.
stagnant.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One question for you, Sheriff, with respect to this. What will happen at the end of this term? What are the measures that are being taken? Because, I think it's very difficult for you to take your qualified people to man a door, especially at the cost that it's running to the county. So I'm wondering if there's an outside contracting firm, or what are the other measures that they're looking at down the road?
Yeah, I'm really leaving that on building maintenance to put in those placeholds once that time comes. My understanding is that every hallway, every threshold will now be secured, and you'll need a prox card to enter those areas in each part of the building. And there is a move to hire probably a civilian greeter at the front door, but again, that's going to be on their choice. I wouldn't be providing that staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I guess my only question regarding this resolution is, I see the need for having somebody at the front door, especially because we have some security issues that we're worried about. But originally, when we passed this resolution, I was hoping that by July we had a better idea of how to plan this, because I think it is not the best idea to have a deputy at the front door. I think it takes away from whatever else they should be, protecting and serving. So I guess my question would be, have we discussed this with building maintenance? Because I know we haven't had a real thorough discussion regarding security measures for the campus. And I don't know if the committee would allow us to maybe just table this for 30 days and kind of come back with a discussion, or I'll leave it up to you, Sheriff, if you think that we need to pass this so that we have it available for July.
Yes, if we need to continue, as long as we get reimbursement, I'm fine with that anytime in this fiscal year.
Because I think if we kind of give ourselves a better timeline, we can maybe discuss this and have a better idea of what we want to do with the campus. So if it's okay with the committee, I'd like to entertain a motion to table for 30 days.
So moved.
Gums will move that.
Okay, so Ms. Gums moves and Mr. Sanchez seconds. May I have a roll call regarding tabling for 30 days?
Brown, yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shepro, Davis.
Davis, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll bring this back up, and in the meantime, I'll like to have a conversation with the sheriff and with building maintenance to kind of have a better plan.
And I know Chris Allen does have a full presentation on this and a plan in action.
Okay.
And construction should be starting soon on the new security measures. So it'd be prudent to have him in here, I'm
Okay.
sure.
Okay, great, thank you. Sheriff, anything else?
Yeah, finally, I just wanted to mention, I talked a couple months ago about docuseries that was going to be filmed in our jail on the jail reform that we do. They put together about 4 episodes, and this is the trailer video for those episodes. Unfortunately, it won't play here. It's an awesome video that really captures, it's only about 3 minutes long, and it really captures the ins and outs of the jail and what we do there. So I'm going to just email everybody the link to it later on. It's good viewing.
Thank you. Okay, well, let's move on to our state's attorney, Ms. Mosser. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. So it is Police Officer Memorial Week, and part of what I would really like to talk about is a couple of things that the sheriff has brought up. First of all, the award to Nicole was definitely awarded. This particular incident is one in which I became involved in to try to help this situation. There was nothing that I did that Nicole and Brandon McInnes weren't doing. And I have to tell you, being a longtime advocate for the safety of victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, I was so proud to be tangentially involved with all of that because we made people safe. We made a victim of domestic violence who for a long time has been blaming herself and thinking that somehow she was the issue or that she needed to help the abuser. They helped her get safe. And I can't even tell you how much that's going to have an effect on her and her children and our community. We are at the point now where we have a provable case. And it's not that we want to put this individual in jail. We want to get him treatment, because getting him treatment means they're going to be safe. So this was an amazing thing for me to witness, especially given my love of trying to help people. And to see that at our sheriff's office and to see that they came in when they were not on duty because of a cry for help from this victim was incredible. So I have to give kudos to them because it was fantastic to see.
And our state's attorney, I have to interject, came out
Yes.
at till what, 2 a.m. that night with them. So thank you very much for that. That was very impressive on your part.
Well, thank you. It was great to see. And then the partnership that I've had with Sheriff Hain. We are working really hard to create deflection programs. And the deflection programs, the whole goal is just not put them through the criminal justice system. And in doing so, we're going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives. And on the parts in which our county board, I know, loves to see, besides the greatness, it's going to reduce what we're bringing through our court system, which means it's less money overall that we're having to do that for. And we're going to get people to treatment and services so much quicker. If I didn't have the partner in Ron that I have, then I wouldn't be able to be doing these programs. We're increasing our deferred prosecution programs for the people who are charged. And with my partnership with Ron, with Public Defender Conant being a part of that, with our chief judge, with probation being a partner to that, we're really going to make criminal justice reform something here in Kane County that every other county is going to be able to look at. So again, without the help of law enforcement and forward thinking, I would never be able to do that. So thank you. The other portion that I want to talk about is that we've been providing a lot of training to our police departments, especially in regards to the House Bill 3653. This is what has been called the Police Reform Training Act or Criminal Justice Reform Training Act. That's going to have a lot of long-term consequences in regards to our community. So this morning we provided our 4th training to the Aurora Police Department, and we're going to provide that to all of our police departments in Kane County so that they're aware of the changes that are coming down the road. In addition to that, we're really working hard with our legislators to try to talk to them about some of the language that has been used in this and how it actually could make our community more unsafe as a result of it. So we're proposing language that serves their purpose of what they want to do in regards to criminal justice reform, but does it in a way that makes it so that police officers can do their job, prosecutors can do their job, and we can effectively protect our community. So that is the report that I have. I have our report obviously on file, and then I can go forward with the resolutions unless there's any questions.
Any questions for our state's attorney? Oh, okay. Yep, go ahead. If I can have, if you can introduce the resolution, and then I'll take a motion in a second.
Yes, the first resolution is designating space for the Deborah L. Bree Memorial Garden at the King County Child Advocacy Center.
I have a motion and a second to discuss.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Mr. Leonard moves, Mr. Sanchez seconds.
So Deb Bree was a prosecutor at our office that had worked for a number of years, tirelessly serving victims. She was the head of our Child Advocacy Center and dedicated so much of her time to the population of our community of children who are either being severely physically abused or sexually abused by family members. This is not an easy job to do, and it takes its toll on any prosecutor, and she probably dedicated more time than anyone to being the head of that department. Unfortunately, last year we lost Deb to cancer, a battle that she had for over 2 years. When I started at the office, Deb was one of the senior attorneys, and she's somebody that I looked up to. And I'm sure Chief Judge Hull, who's had a lot of interactions with her because he worked with her even longer than I did, can give even more of a description of how amazing she was. As a young attorney, I looked up to her. I wanted to be like her. She was the type of person who fought her cases and did so ethically and with compassion. And in the office, she developed a lot of friendships. She was a mentor to many. Her best friend, Kelly Orland, actually gave the presentation on this yesterday to admin and spoke about her. And she met the love of her life at our office, Joe Gay, who's an assistant state's attorney there. She has 4 children who she leaves behind, who unfortunately only got a small snippet of time with their mother. So with that being said, we want to do something which was a dream of hers. Kids go into the Child Advocacy Center and have to relive the worst things that have happened to them. And her dream was always to have a garden that they could see on their way in and on their way out. So a symbol of beauty amidst all of the chaos that they had. As a result of this, we have already raised over 2/3 of the funds to support this. And then with the help of Chris Allen for minor cleanup, that's all that's going to have to happen. We're not asking for money for the county board. We're just asking for the designation of the space. Thank you.
Thank you. Any thoughts or comments regarding this resolution? No, thank you. And administration yesterday had a lot of the pictures up, and it looks beautiful. And I think this is just a little piece that I think I'm glad that we can be a part of, just to show how much, we appreciated all the work she did. Okay, no further thoughts or questions? If I can have a roll call, please.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Davis. Mr. Davis. Passes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, and then our second resolution from our state's attorney.
It is authorizing the participation in the appellate prosecutor program.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Okay, Mr. Leonard moves, Mr. Sanchez seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you. Whenever a case goes through trial, either being resolved in a plea or through a trial of finding of guilt, there are post-conviction motions that happen. A lot of those are actually done within our office because we have a post-conviction portion or attorneys who deal with those cases. But we have a significant amount of cases that go up on appeal that go to the second district and then potentially could even go to the Illinois Supreme Court. Unfortunately, just due to the complexity of those cases and manpower, we're not able to handle the majority of our appeals. As a result of that, we have an agreement with the appellate prosecutor's office, as most of our state's attorney's offices do, that they handle the appeals. We work with them, we review the appeals, we talk about the issues in the case. But again, what this does is it transfers a portion of our funds, which are already approved and in our budget. I'm not asking anything from our sheriff, particularly on this, but to pay them to handle our appeals. They are fantastic attorneys who do great work and make sure to represent the interests of the people of Kane County.
Great. Any comments or questions regarding this resolution? Okay, hearing and seeing none, may I please have roll call?
Brown,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Davis.
Davis, yes.
Thank you. Passes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, anything else for us, Ms. Mosser?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is our public defender. Ms. Conant, good morning.
Good morning. Our reports are on file. I did also just want to give you a little snapshot of our year so far. We have opened 2,810 cases and have closed 2,520 cases. So clearly you can see the difference from this year as to last year. We are back to business and working very hard. We are working now with the help of the judges and the state's attorney of getting the cases set for trial and moving towards trial. We are looking forward, hopefully soon, to be able to have all of the courtrooms open for trial so that we can do more than 1 or 2 a week. But we are making progress in getting those trial cases brought to trial and disposed of. I would just, that's my report for the office. I just would like to say that thank you to the board for supporting Ms. Mosser's resolution for the garden for Miss Bree. I would just like to say that I knew Deb from the start of my time here in Kane County. She was a fabulous attorney, but an even better person. It's very rare that you hear that someone is respected in their own office, but also as a state's attorney, but also respected as a attorney in the community as a whole. And that was something that could be said of Deb. I think that you would hear from everyone who ever met her. So I am looking forward to seeing the final product of the garden, and I'm sure it will be a true testament to Deb. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Conant. Okay, we can move on to our judiciary. Judge Hall, good morning.
Good morning. I want to just start out by echoing the comments about Deb Bree. Just a couple things that haven't been mentioned. First is when we talk about law enforcement recognition and we talk about the people that we recognize, very often Prosecutors don't get mentioned because they're behind the scenes, but Deb Bree was a public servant. You know, we have constant conversations about salaries and whether our salaries meet what other counties have. That didn't matter to Deb Bree. Deb Bree was a public servant. She was a litigator. She wanted to protect. And so whatever she made, she made. It wasn't about that for her. It was about the mission of protecting others. And the Child Advocacy Center, I'm a former first assistant. I was a prosecutor. I've prosecuted murder cases. I've prosecuted reckless homicide cases. There's nothing more difficult than prosecuting a sexual assault against a child. It's one of the hardest cases that you can prosecute, not only because of the subject area, but because of how difficult it is to get the proof to beyond a reasonable doubt. And not only did she do that time and time again, but she trained others to do that. So ultimately, it's just, and I know we all have these experiences, but Kane County lost somebody that was near and dear to all of us, and that would have continued to do great things. And so your recognition of her is very appreciated because she was a believer. And one of the things that I always come back to is she was a protector. And I know that there's a lot of criminal justice reform, but sometimes there's cases and there's people that society needs protection from. And she was not afraid to step up and make that request as well. And so, again, I want to tell you, I appreciate what the county board has done to recognize her. Ron, Police Appreciation Week. I do agree with you that we're blessed here in Kane County to recognize our officers. You guys do a wonderful job, not only at the sheriff's office, but across the board. One of the things that the county always has done is at Mooseheart, we've had Police Appreciation Week, which is one of my favorite events, where everybody gathers to remember the fallen officers and to say thank you for the service. That's been a COVID fatality the last 2 years, and it's something I miss a lot. So I'm looking forward to it coming back. But thank you to you and your deputies. Next, I want to just, again, say thank you to all of you for the build out of the second courtroom that was approved by the county board the other day. And there were celebrations in our office. I appreciate your recognition of the importance of that. And so we're looking forward to moving on that project. But I just want to say thank you for your support. Not only that, but in that same county board meeting, you approved another public defender position for those child abuse cases. And it's much needed and again, appreciated. So thank you for your recognition of that. Couple other things that I just want to touch on. One, the sheriff talked about the jail and the population of the jail. One of the things that we're trying to focus on is not only the people that are there that could potentially be released out on EHM, but we're trying to look at the number of people that have been incarcerated for a year or more. One of the things that we've done recently with the help of the sheriff, the state's attorney, and the PD is we have a list of all the defendants that have been in our jail for a year or more. And there's about 105, 106 of those defendants. The goal is to try to look at those to figure out and analyze why is somebody sitting in our jail for over a year or 2 years or 3 years. And then sometimes those are murder cases or cases that need to be tried. There's nothing that can be done to resolve those. But our focus is how do we get those cases to trial then? Because we need to for everybody's sake, get those resolved. If the person's convicted, get them to DOC. If the person's acquitted, provide justice to everybody involved. But so that's something that we're continuing to work on. And at this point, that list is shared every week with the state's attorney and the PD. And we have about 55% of those cases are now set for trial, which is one way to resolve those. But it's something that hasn't been done before that we're looking at collectively. And I think it's a good step in the right direction to try to move those cases along as well. Next thing was just to give you an update. We have worked together, circuit clerk, the justice managers, to try to bring in a facilitator. I know that you guys just had I think I had read or heard that you're beginning, Building and Grounds is doing a master plan review of all the facilities to try to prioritize and figure out what the county's priorities are. We're trying to do the same thing for you from a justice manager's perspective. We brought in Dr. David Olson from Loyola, who gave us some numbers. We're talking to another person that I hope will help us try to collectively come together to identify for you and the county board what we believe the priorities are as we head into the future with this Criminal Justice Reform Act bill that's coming, so that we can at least try to highlight for you and give you some help in trying to figure out what the priorities will be moving forward. So that's a big project. And just so that I know we've talked about it, but the Criminal Justice Reform Act was passed. That goes into effect in different times. But the biggest thing for the court system and for you is January 1st of 2023. It will change significantly the way that we do bond call. It will change the requirements that we have on a day-to-day basis. And there's definitely going to be an impact on our system. So we want to try to identify that for you. So if there's an increased cost, which there may be, we can try to get ahead of that as quickly as possible so that you can anticipate and know what that's going to be. And our hope is to come in front of you possibly next month. And I know we joke about PowerPoint presentations, but something where we come in front of you to identify from each office holder's perspective the impact we think that bill will have, not only in man hours, but also fiscally. And again, our hope is then that will give you information that you can begin to review to see. We don't want to come to you and say, we need $1 million or we need $2 million. We want to come to you and say, this is what we believe based upon our numbers, the impact is going to be. This is what our recommendations to you would be as to how we're going to have to meet those needs. And then to work with you to try to figure out how do we pay for that if we have to do that. So between now and then, if anybody would like to reach out and ask any questions about that, I would love to talk to you about that, because there's a part of it that there's an unknown, not only for us, but for counties across the state, and everybody's trying to figure out the same thing. So more information to come on that. And then finally, from a court operations standpoint, as Ms. Conant just pointed out, I think with, again, your help and with IT's help, we're not going to have the backlog or experience the backlog that we've seen in other counties because of the technology and because of IT. We've been moving. But the next big step for Kane County and for the court system is with our bridge. Governor Pritzker's announced the bridge that's going to be in effect on May 14th, where some of the COVID restrictions are going to be lifted. And then potentially a state reopening on June 11th. And so, or 14th, as early as that. So the question for the court system is, and for Kane County, is what does that mean for us? How do we go back to resumption of our in-court activities? And more importantly, how do we take the benefits that we've learned from this, the technology that we've used to try to keep people from coming into court? How do we take all that in and move forward? And one of the biggest things that we're looking at is, again, how do we use that technology that's been so beneficial? We don't want to, I keep comparing it to the treadmill that's down in the basement where it goes from being used to being used as some place to put your clothes. You know, we don't want all this technology to get put into a closet and shelved. There's been too many advantages and too many benefits. But the real question is, how do we use that? And what can we do with this American Rescue Act money to possibly even enhance our ability to use this technology to help the court system in the future? My thought would be the upside is, one, public access to courts would be improved, but we also hope that there would be a cost savings in that as well. So I know that was a lot, but that's one of the focuses. And Doug Naughton, who's the court administrator here, that Andrea, Lisa, we're all working together to try to figure that out so we can come to you to answer questions and provide information so that you can make decisions from there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Judge Hall. Any comments or questions regarding the report? Okay, thank you again for your leadership. I know these past 6 months have been a lot for everybody, especially for our judicial partners. So thank you for taking leadership and guiding us through this.
Thank you. And Doug, I didn't know, did you have anything? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We will move along to our Court Services Administration. Mrs. Ost, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I have a few resolutions. I'll do those at the end. For the monthly reports, the JJC population report is on file. I want to introduce LaTanya Hill. She is a director in court services. She is a specialist in all realms of juvenile as well as pretrial. So she's going to present a little bit on pretrial. As you know, each month I want to talk a little bit about each different section or segment that court services does, because really we do a lot. And it's hard to describe all that. So LaTanya is going to present on pretrial, but one note before we go into that too much, Kane, we've always been the quiet partner in criminal reform in this state, I think. Like we started reforming our pretrial process in 2016 with the help of the AOIC, and we did many presentations in front of the board. And so in some ways we're well positioned. In some ways, this new Criminal Reform Act kind of pushes us far beyond what we had already achieved. So I really am excited for LaTanya to start that conversation so that we can kind of get a baseline of where we're at, and then we can, start planning where to go from there. So without further ado, LaTanya, go.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to give you a reader's, I don't know if I'm pointing at the right place because it's not moving. So my goal is to give you a Reader's Digest version of pretrial. I know I don't want to be before you long. Please feel free to reach out to myself or anyone else if you have any additional questions or ask any questions here at the end. Lisa's come before you talking about pretrial in the past, so I'm going to give you a short synopsis. So of course, this is our org chart. As Lisa says, we do a lot within court services. This is just a visual depiction of all of the departments and processes that falls under the Chief Judge Court Administration. Of course, Lisa, that comes before you each month. Pretrial, when you're looking from a budgetary standpoint, right now is included with adult probation and is about 30% of our budget. Moving forward, you will see pretrial pulled out. AOIC is looking for us to be able to show what costs we are giving just specifically to pretrial versus in combination with adult probation. As it stands, pretrial has a director, which is myself. I am not solely I'm responsible for pretrial, but that is not my only responsibility. We also have a program manager, and much of his responsibility is data collection, data synthesization. His role is to make sure that we are abiding by evidence-based practices. We're implementing our risk assessments with validity and fidelity. He's also not just solely pretrial. He does fall under some of our other units within court services. We do have 2 dedicated supervisors that supervise 11 pretrial staff and 1 support staff. As Lisa said, we did expand in 2016. Prior to that expansion, we only had 2 pretrial officers, and we were not a fully functioning pretrial unit. So what is pretrial services? Ultimately, we have to follow the Pretrial Act, which is ILCS 725 ILCS 185. Our staff are responsible for providing background data for the purposes of pretrial release, making recommendations on conditions for release, and the supervision of defendants if they are released. We expanded our program back in 2016 because we were one of 3 sites chosen by AOIC to pilot the public safety assessment, or you'll hear us refer to it as the PSA assessment. That risk assessment is an ancillary tool similar to what insurance companies use to give us the likelihood of someone failing to appear in court, their likelihood of committing a new criminal activity, and we also receive a flag to see if they will have any new violent activities. We complete bond reports, court reminders, supervise pretrial conditions, and of course, a part of the pretrial phase, we do pre-sentence and pre-plea reports as ordered. We did participate in a study through Harvard and Arnold Ventures, who was once Arnold Foundation. They did find that the PSA, based upon our data, the PSA is overall valid. So I wanted to just kind of give you an idea of how many PSAs we do per year. So since 2016, we averaged just shy of 4,000 PSAs a year. 2020, we did see a decline. As I think KCOM showed earlier, it was a decline in even services called. So that was reflective of the number of people that came to bond call. So in 2020, we completed 3,163 PSAs. That our pretrial unit was up and functioning the entire time throughout the pandemic. We processed all cases that came through. It was just a lower number during 2020. As you can also see, the people that appear in bond call is evenly distributed throughout the county, pretty much in thirds as you look at Tri-Cities area, Aurora, and Elgin. Of the 3,163 PSAs completed in 2020, 59% were for felony offenses and 41% were for misdemeanor offenses. I want to just give you an idea of what it takes to do a PSA and what our staff have to do each morning. We have a staff that reports at 5:30 a.m. That is 3 hours before the start of bond call. That's because we have to go through all the paperwork from the various jurisdictions of Kane County, run leads. We have to look at databases in our area for failure to appear so we can score that assessment and we can provide that data to the bond call judge so that courtroom can run efficiently. So we have someone that reports at 5:30 and 2 more people that come at 6 o'clock. Back in 2019 or higher years, we could potentially walk in the morning and have 20 to 25 people up at bond call. It varies day to day. You really just don't know. So we've built in that 3-hour lead time to ensure that we can provide information as necessary. So now let's talk about what that PSA is showing us and what we've been able to see as far as how our risk is distributed. I've provided 2019 numbers along with 2020, but this shows you that our risk distribution pretty much remains the same. Of those people that appear in bond call, you can expect that anywhere between 35 to 40% of those are going to be assessed to be a need for maximum conditions, and about 6 to 8 are going to be PSL 4s. Those are the ones that have the most risk of not appearing in court or the most risk of picking up new criminal activity. We focus our supervision efforts on those higher risk people because that's what evidence-based practices tells us to do. So as for those higher risk individuals, we are having phone contact, monthly face-to-face contact, and sending court reminders. Court reminders have been found to be the most effective intervention to ensure a reduction of failure to appear. Just like you get your text message to go to the dentist and the doctor, we send text messages reminding people to get to court. So last year, we sent just shy of 15,000 text reminders, reminding our clients of their upcoming court dates. Prior to each client appearing in court, we do complete a leads report and report to the court any new criminal activity or any issues with. Oh, I'm sorry. Leads report is a criminal history report. We have a lot of acronyms in court services. A leads report is a criminal history, and that is ultimately giving us background as to any offenses that client has had prior to coming before our court. We are currently supervising about 3,300 clients for under our pretrial. So let's just talk a little bit about those that are released on monetary bail or released on their own recognizances, or some of you may know that is released on signature. In 2020, we did see an increase in those released on their own signature. And I think that's related to us taking the judges in the jail taking a concerted effort to take a look at and make sure that we have our highest risk people potentially detained in the jail in hopes of decreasing the spread of COVID in the jail. I'm gonna take you back. If you can see, our monetary bonds in 2020 was about 45%. If you look at our risk level, our risk of the highest 2 conditions is about 47%. So we did really take risk into consideration when setting monetary bail in 2020 in hopes of mitigating the pandemic. Court services, just so you know, we do supervise 85 to 90% of the people released on pretrial conditions year to year. So you may ask, what happens? What data are we seeing from people that are released from jail during their pretrial phase? As expected, this is showing you fourth quarter 2020, how many rearrests we had for people that were on pretrial supervision. So we should expect that our max conditions are going to be the highest percentage of those that have a rearrest, because that's what the tool is telling us. So we did have about 55% have a rearrest, but total, that's only 165 rearrests. And it is our 2 highest supervision levels, and those are the people that we're spending our most time with. Our risk assessment tells us that someone identified as maximum risk has anywhere between a 45 and 50% chance of a new arrest. So our data is following that. There's been a lot of discussion about the pretrial, the criminal justice reform that's happening in the state. Pretrial reform has been a topic that we've had our ears to the grindstone on for the last couple of years. We've been well suited and situated because we did participate in that PSA pilot that has pushed us along. So we are closer to where we are. It looks that AOIC wants us to be as it relates to pretrial in years coming. One thing that we will have to keep in mind that is, it is looking like that there will be a statewide assessment that may include an interview. If it does include an interview, that will have impact on our practices because at this point in time, our assessment does not require that we interview everyone that appears in bond call. That pretrial commission report that was issued in April of 2020, much of the recommendations of that report is language that you see in House Bill 3653 as it relates to pretrial reform. Most of the recommendations of that Supreme Court report from the state of Illinois is based upon the NAPSA report and the report from NIC that I've included the links of if you just have a burning desire to learn more about pretrial and figure out what we might be doing in the future. I've provided you with that. I know I went very fast. If anyone has any questions, I am available.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Any questions or comments? I think you picked the right group. We will click on those links, won't we? Yes, go ahead, Chair.
LaTanya, what was the total number you served in 2020? Was that 3,000?
3,163 PSAs were completed in 2020.
Oh, and 165 rearrests?
In the fourth quarter of 2020.
Just in the fourth quarter?
Yes.
Okay. Would you mind sending me your PowerPoint? I love data
Absolutely.
out of your office.
Absolutely.
Always good stuff. Thank
I'll
you.
email it to you.
Yeah, and thank you. So just to clarify, if we did a PSA, that's an arrest event. So that's a rough proxy for arrest. Although we don't do a PSA or a full bond report on every arrest. So the actual arrests in the county were higher than that number,
Sure.
as well as the fact that you were right to pick up on of those 3,000 whatever PSAs that we did, only 165 reoffended, which is reassuring.
Yeah.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. LaTanya, I have a question for you. With respect to the PSA, could you give me a breakdown on those 3,100 plus PSAs between misdemeanors and felonies? And what time does it take to do a misdemeanor PSA versus a felony one?
It takes the same time. The length of time is based upon going through that lease report or that criminal history report because they have to review all of that client's previous offenses to be able to score the PSA. The time also involved is being able to look at those other databases, those clerk databases, to look at any previous failure to appears because that goes into the scoring. So the time it takes misdemeanor versus felony does not change.
So my question is irrelevant.
But
Thank you
just to
very much.
answer your question, 59% of those were for felonies and 41% were for misdemeanors. I don't have the end of that, but that's the
That's all right.
percentage.
Well, and I'm sorry to keep piggybacking, but you come close to a really good point, which is that you could be arrested for a misdemeanor today, but you have a history of felonies. And so that's why we treat them exactly the same. You could be a felon today, but you have a history of misdemeanor. So we look at the full scope of everything you bring to the table.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, could I make a couple of comments
Yes,
on things
absolutely.
that brought up? There were just a couple things. One is, we keep referring to the new law that's coming, and there's so many different components, but one of the bigger issues that's being discussed right now is with this new legislation that's been passed, the state is considering taking what Lisa and LaTanya just talked about and taking it from local control and making it a state-run operation. So the issue there is there's a lot of counties throughout the state who don't have, again, we're one of the leaders for the reasons that have been outlined, but there's some counties that don't have any sort of pretrial program. So the AOIC, the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts, and the Illinois State Supreme Court are right now in discussions with what's the best way to do this. And one of the options for the state is to make this the state employees would do these PSAs, not local, which we have, I personally have a concern about. We have a great department. We have localized PSAs. We do an excellent job. And so, again, this is up for discussion, but we may come back to you because they are considering this statewide situation where then instead of, as Latanya and Lisa just described, our workers coming at 5:30, it would be the state workers' responsibility instead of being here to potentially have to remote in. So that affects the sheriff. And again, I'm not, I guess I want to say that this isn't the chief judge position. This is a personal position at this point, but I don't understand what the benefit of doing that would be for Kane County. We have an excellent program. And so to take away that localized ability and to put it at the state level may benefit other parts of the state, but it would not benefit us. So that is a conversation. And I was a part of the conversation yesterday. Our Supreme Court justice in this area is Justice Michael Burke. I can't thank him enough for reaching out to us to ask us for our opinion. That's something that hasn't happened in the past. It's something because of Zoom, but so that's going to be a continuing and ongoing discussion that you'll hear about. The other thing I want to just note is I know that the county board's always talking, and you have to look at revenue sources. One of the things that this is going to do, there's a lot of benefits, but one of the things that this new no cash system is going to do is, I think, Teresa, I think it was about $500,000 a year that came to the county from the 10%. Is that right? So just to give you a heads up, so if somebody is required, if bail is set at $1,000, they have to post $100 of that. And then 10% of that goes to the county for the cost of everything that goes into it. And so when you look at all the arrests in the past, that's averaged out to be about $500,000 a year. So when we look at, and I'm not suggesting that it should or shouldn't be, it's just the reality is when we start looking at the budgetary impacts, $500,000 that's been coming in that you've used to support court operations is no longer going to be available when that system gets implemented. And the other thing that we're looking at from a chief judge perspective is the diversion programs are fantastic, but again, we have to look at what is the financial impact of those diversion programs. And I want to make sure that I'm clear and that I'm not objecting to anything that S.A. Masser and the sheriff are doing. But when we look at revenue, there is money that comes to the county through the fines, the costs of fines and costs when people go through the system. Sometimes it's been referred to as a user fee. But when those cases are diverted, that money is no longer coming to the county to be used to fund court operations. So I'm not saying that's good or bad or indifferent, but when we again look at the county's financial responsibilities and the items that the county has used to fund different programs, there is a, and again, it's a decision that's made with open eyes. There's goods about it, but you have to understand that on the downside, there's less money to support circuit clerk, state's attorney, public defender, court operations. So I just think it's important to continue to talk about that as we start to forecast, we're at the budget cycle time to start looking at that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Judge Hall. And just a question regarding what you mentioned about the PSAs being statewide. Is that language right now was that language that was put into the House bill, or is that, okay?
Yeah, no, what the House bill, not the House bill, what the law that was passed now says is that there's a number of different things, and Lisa, if you want to jump on, or Latanya on this, but there's a number of different things that you have to do under this new law. And then the question is, who's in the best position to do those? And because some parts of the state are not nearly, it's not their fault. We're very good up here at the northern end of the county, not only Kane County, DuPage County, Lake County, but the issue is who's going to collect all this data? Who's going to do this? And the state's saying, well, we may be in the best position to do that.
So I've often talked about court services is a little bit different than most departments in the county in that we're really a cost share function between the state and the county. So the majority of our revenue it's over $4 million comes from the state in order to support the employees. And so that is why I've often talked about court services is a bureaucratic nightmare really to run, because I've got regulations from the state, I've got local ordinances, and I've got the court orders to follow as well. And so since we are really largely under the jurisdiction of the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts, they're the ones who they have to implement it statewide. And so they're looking at how do they standardize this statewide. And so then that translates to what do they do with the lower functioning counties? And then unfortunately, since we're a higher functioning county, there might have to be some averaging that happens. And that's exactly what the chief is talking about.
And that's an ongoing discussion. It's not, again, I appreciate the fact that they just didn't do it and tell us deal with it. So that's a positive. And so it's an ongoing discussion, but Director Ost is considered as one of the experts in the state of Illinois. She's on different committees, Latanya, but so they're looking to us and to Lisa and to our department for direction and thoughts on that. So they've asked, and we're going to share those thoughts with them.
Okay, well, that's a positive then. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Ms. Ost, do you want to go on to the resolutions, or are there any other questions regarding? Okay.
Okay, excellent. So I do have a couple of resolutions in front of you today. The first one is authorizing our adult drug court to enter into contracts that we're going to use our federal grants for.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Leonard seconds.
Mr. Sanchez moves, Mr. Leonard seconds. Okay, go ahead.
So as you all recall, we did get a $500,000 grant from the federal government in order to support our adult drug court. So this is asking you to approve us to enter into contracts with 3 different providers in order to provide a whole range of services to drug addicted people. Some people may have co-occurring mental illnesses or other things in their lives that we're not able to effectively treat them in the communities. They really need an inpatient facility to do that. So we've identified 3 different agencies that we want to have contracts with in order to get these people treatment.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? And are these agencies that we've been using?
Yes, we've been using them. We've got great track records with them.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question, Ms. Ost. I see in the resolution that states not to exceed $433,000. The grant was for $500,000. Where will those additional monies be used?
That is a great question. So of that $500,000, we've set aside a certain amount for incentives for the drug court. I think about $10,000 is going to train our staff in evidence-based practices and other issues like that. There's built-in bus passes for people who don't have access to transportation. So the remaining balance is going to support the program in other ways.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? If not, please call the roll.
Brown,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Davis.
Davis, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This resolution passes and it will move on to finance and budget.
Shepro, yes.
There he is.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shepro.
He's alive.
Okay, and our second resolution, Ms. Ost, go ahead.
Yes, the second resolution is for the food provider for the Juvenile Justice Center. This is a provider that we've used for many years, and they have agreed to a 1-year extension of the contract at the exact same price as this year. So especially in news of inflation taking hold, we thought this was a good deal we wanted to jump on.
Okay, great. May I have a motion and a second to approve and discuss?
Leonard moves.
Mr. Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Mr. Sanchez seconds. Any comments or questions regarding this resolution? Okay, hearing and seeing none, may I please have the roll?
Brown,
Yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shepro,
Shepro, yes.
Davis.
Davis, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. This resolution will also move on to finance. Okay, next item on our agenda is our circuit clerk. Good morning.
Good morning. You want the good news or the bad news?
Bad news first.
Just good news only.
Just good news. Well, then I should leave. Your report's in your packet. If anybody has any questions, please let me know or give me a call, whatever you want to do. I do want to mention that We are up on traffic court, which is excellent because that's basically where we get a lot of our fees from or fines from. So we're up on those courts. So I'm happy to announce that DUI and traffic courts is up. A couple things I would like to boast about first is we implemented the 2018 Tyler Odyssey program, which is something that I was strongly advocating for a few years now. And that's been implemented. It was a long battle with Tyler and our ITD and our staff trying to get everything to mesh together, which if you're not a computer goddess or god, you would not understand at all. But it is a huge project, costs us a lot of money to initiate originally. So I was happy to announce that we got it going. It did go pretty smoothly. There are several advantages to this program, and one is statistics, which Chief Judge Hall alluded to a little bit earlier. The state of Illinois is looking at a lot of statistics going forward with the criminal justice reform bill. And we need to have that information readily available. And we're still having trouble tweaking the system to get that to work. So hopefully, I've been told yesterday that 2021 is great with statistics, but we're on 2018 right now. So hopefully we will get that going soon, and then we can run a lot more reports that are more accurate than what we've done in the past. We've also had to implement a new echo system. I know that's foreign to all of you, but our court system uses it, and it's essential to running the courtroom for the clerk in the court and the judge. We had echo originally on a flash icon, and I believe it's Adobe or Google, one of those, pulled that. And so we've been kind of having a fix with computers, and my staff is so good at figuring this all out that they've actually run a fix for all the courtrooms, and they run back and forth with computers when it crashes. And the literal time frame on this is May 25th. Then the old Echo will not be able to be used at all. So we are using the new Echo 2, which ITD created, our ITD created, and we did not have any time to test it with the 2018 program because everything kind of came at the same time. Unfortunately, this was not planned. That's just how it happened. So we are literally testing in the courtrooms as we're bringing it live. So, so far it's been okay, and ITD's been there also, their staff, to help make sure that any glitches or any issues that we have, they can report back and get them fixed as soon as possible. And so far it's been well. It's frustrating, I know, for the judges, it's frustrating for the clerks, but there's no other way of working around this. So that's what we have. That's what we have right now. We have a couple issues now. To the bad news. Actually, that was good what I just said. So on to the bad news. We have a huge turnover in the office, mainly due to pay. We pay $13.59 an hour. And currently, due to COVID, people can find jobs, even working at Menards for $17 an hour. And you don't have to deal with the judges. So why not? So there's a lot of responsibilities that come with the deputy clerk's position. So it's kind of hard to find somebody that is not going, we're not going to train them for a year and then they move on to Jamie Mosser's office, since she took one of my latest staff members. So yes, it's a weekly struggle for us right now, and we are literally so low on staff that we have clerks in 2 courtrooms at the same time. We have clerks on Zoom. We have supervisors in courtrooms. If somebody calls in sick, that's it. I don't know how to use Echo, okay, folks? So I can't go in there and do it. But this is a huge issue right now. So my goal is, and I know this is being recorded, but my goal right now is to get our $13.59 an hour up to $15 an hour. I have it in the budget. We are working out a plan because we don't want to leave the rest of the staff high and dry. So this is all a work in progress. But with the JJC build out, we need a clerk in there. We don't have a clerk, extra clerk. We need extra clerks in the eviction courtrooms. Thank God that's still not set yet because there's still a moratorium on that. But we're in some trouble right now as far as having people stay longer than 5 years. You can't get to $15 an hour at the circuit clerk's office in 5 years. And you have to know computer systems, you have to be able to type, you have to be able to multitask. It's a huge, huge responsibility for such low pay. And this is not, this is all from previous administration and leadership that decided to keep the pay low so we didn't have to raise taxes. And I understand all that. I was part of that. But being on the other side now, I'm seeing that, but you know, it's just a real struggle for our office right now. And I have to commend the staff because they're all pulling together and working together and they're managing it. But there are days when we all kind of look at each other like, don't talk, something else could happen today. But it's coming along. And the staff does a great, phenomenal job. So kudos to them and for hanging in there. And we're getting some really good young people. When we had 7 retirees this year, so we're getting some really, really good young people that can multitask. Kids are not like us old folk that, you know, they can do 3-4 things. It's really phenomenal. So next month I will bring a presentation. So don't make really long ones, folks, because I need to show this presentation. Yeah. And one of the things that Chief Judge alluded to was the $500,000 that a year that we're going to be short through the county for bond call. And a couple of years ago, State's Attorney Joe McMahon proposed using some RTA money for that. And I know it's amazing how people you don't see their faces too much. And then when you have a meeting, going to take away some RTA money, that room was pretty crowded. But we do really, I think the board really needs to look at other avenues and balance it a little more throughout the county. So there is money available, but it's just in different areas. And we really need to kind of balance that out so that we can cover the judicial system, that with the criminal justice reform bill and the new records manual, there are a lot of things coming down the pike that we really need to be prepared for. And the way the economy's right now, that the money is not going to be there. So I think as a board, everybody needs to really take a look at that and see where they can allocate other funds, because the circuit clerk's office, unfortunately, has always been the ugly stepchild that nobody's ever really looked at. And we actually are the engine to the judicial system. Without the clerks, without the technology in the courtrooms wouldn't run. So this is an area that I think has been ignored and really needs to be looked at going further. I think that's all I have to address. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Shepro.
Mr. Shepro, go ahead.
Teresa, if, as I understand it, the shortage is that all your positions aren't filled or they're coming and going through the revolving door. Does that mean that there are unspent salary funds because you can't find people to take the jobs?
Yes, we are currently down 15 clerks. And we have been hiring as fast as, well, we took care of the ones that retired. We brought 5 in, 2 we moved around in the office, and those 2 went on to other positions. And then, yeah, so actually there was a couple positions that were never filled, but that was due to trying to hold the line on staffing over there. But we are budgeted for 105, and I believe they only had 97 positions filled. And I think currently, well, we're down to 90, so.
I'm sure it's not analogous, but it occurs to me that recently we've reviewed the situation with the health department having essentially unspent funds left over that they are devoting to temporary salary increases for what seem like somewhat similar circumstances. And I wondered if that is an option that, and they also had a union contract. And it just occurs to me, is that something that is a possible, at least short-term option before we get into budget discussions?
Yes, that's exactly what I was referring to. I plan on upping the initial to $15, so we would at least get in with what the state's going to be requiring. Now, I know that I believe the state gives us to 2023 or 2025. I'm not sure. But by that time, we're going to be so far behind, we wouldn't be able to catch up financially. My proposal is in my budget. It's not, we did not get COVID dollars like other departments did. So we are operating under our budget. I know other areas did receive quite a bit of COVID money for certain things, but we did not. And we have a game plan that we can do this in our budget and not, come back to the board for asking for any money currently. If we remain the budget as it is right now for salaries and benefits, as it is currently next year, we would be fine.
Just another
Mr. Shepros, I think, still has the floor. Mr. Copey, you can be
I
next.
just had one. You referred to with, I think, a certain amount of gratitude that the moratorium on evictions is still in place. And I guess this maybe is a question for you and Judge Hall, is if in fact the state reopens in a matter of weeks, does that also impact the fate of the moratorium? I know there's a national order in effect as well, but that strikes me as being a dike that could breach very easily and quickly if all of a sudden all these cases come back up.
That's correct.
I like that answer. Right to the point.
Agreed.
Okay. I will take that as more to come later when it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepro. Mr. Copey, go ahead.
Thank you. Is this connection very good?
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, the question I have is, how many employees how many employee positions do you have that are vacant, and how do you advertise for that? And what would be the time frame to potentially get them filled, even though, $13 an hour would be a very difficult position to fill with skills of that sort? And then the other question I have is, you are not operating under grant funds as compared to the health department. And the argument with the health department and increasing wages is, if we if we do not spend that grant money, then we won't receive that grant money, and that's understandable. And that is a key point to the argument. Do you receive those types of grant money, or is it all general fund? And even if it was grant money, could we differentiate between what is a grant dollar and what is a general fund dollar and what is a COVID virus dollar? So I'd have to, at $13 an hour, how could I not support spending the money? But I'd hope I could get some of those questions answered. Was that too many questions, or should I try to reiterate? Thank you.
Thank you. No, that wasn't too many questions. No, we do not receive grants. There's not really a lot of grants that the circuit clerk's office could receive. Again, we did not receive COVID dollars. I think there was a little bit of COVID in the beginning dollars as for sanitizer and stuff like that. I lost some of your questions.
How many employees?
Oh, how many employees? We have there's 105 employees. We are budgeted 105, actually 106 we are budgeted, but one, it's kind of a weird budget process, Tom. One of our employees actually works for the chief judge's office, but we do budget for, so I consider 105. There are 15 vacancies. So if I do my math from Aurora Central Catholic High School, that's 90 employees left. So did I cover everything? You said.
How are they advertised, your vacancies?
Oh, how do we advertise? Well, that's a pickle that we've been trying. We advertised in Indeed, which was per the personnel, the HR department here at the county. We advertise on, I believe, Monster. We advertise on Indeed, and we also put it out on our social media. But and they have it here at the county, but it's really hard if this is a cute little exercise for all of you folks here. Go to the employment section on your county board website, pull up all the jobs that are available. Look at the dollar amount that is given for those jobs. I'm not saying that they're not worth it, but we seem to fall at the bottom. We are underneath the wardens. I mean, the wardens make 11, but they'll see that first. That's an animal warden, welfare warden, not a warden at the jail. It's the animal shelter. So we look at what a deputy clerk's responsibilities are, and they had us underneath the state's attorney, her position. And I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I'm still hot about it, as you can tell. I'm gonna say it.
In my defense,
no,
I'm a really good boss.
Oh,
I learned from Chief Judge Ho.
Okay, one of the things that she said was e-file. There's only 2 places that you need e-file in: state's attorney's office and the circuit clerk's office. She paid more. She paid more. They left. That's the issues that we have.
And I think that's going to be a bigger issue as a county that we need to look at. I don't think we should expect any of our employees to survive on $13 an hour. So
a lot of them have part-time jobs in addition to working at the clerk's office. They also mentioned, Tanya over here also mentioned bond call starting at 5:30 in the morning. We have staff that has to be at bond call, and on weekends. That's overtime. We kind of switch it around, so that's their day also. But we have staff that obviously have to be to that. And yes, we do have the union contracts, the one union contract coming up. And I know this is going to be a huge discussion, but it rightly is so. So I'm hoping with new leadership at the county that things will go a lot smoother.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I think it's going to be a bigger discussion as a county board we need to have. I don't think it's fair that any of our vendors or any of our employees are expected to make a living off of $11, $13 an hour. So it might hurt a couple budgets, but I think it's something that we should be obligated to look at and correct. But
Madam
thank you for your
Chair.
report. Mr. Shepro, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I guess it seems to me, Teresa, you got two separate problems. One is getting people to take the job in the first place. And the second is once they take the job, because the pay is so low, they have very little incentive to stay in the system when another opportunity presents itself.
Exactly.
You're winning the prize for succinct answers, by the way.
Well, yes, I mean, we joke that we train them. We train them to go on to be paralegals or to move on to another department. Because if you can't even get to $15 an hour in 5 years, why would you stay there? I mean, years ago, Mr. Shepro, when you came to the county, because I was a county employee, and you looked at the benefits, and we have great benefits, or we did then, we have great benefits, right? So you would look at it as a career. This is where you're going to stay. You're going to, work here. You have children, whatever, you're going to keep working here. This was a career. Now, the generation that we have applying for these type of jobs, it's not a career. It's live in the day. And, we do have IMRF, and they really don't want to, that's not really a matter to them because they're getting experience and they're benefiting themselves. And that's just the day we're living in. That's not, 40 years ago. Was that better?
Oh, no, the first answer was fine. I was complimenting you. They say brevity is the soul of wit.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Barrero. Any further comments or questions regarding our circuit clerk's report? All right, moving on, Merit Commission. Do we have someone here from our Merit Commission?
I can give a fast report on their behalf.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't believe they're going to be here today. So to the point of the criminal justice reform bill, everybody being afraid about being a police officer, I didn't want to steal their thunder, so I didn't put it in my presentation. But we just did our deputy test, and we were, of course, afraid that we would not have a great turnout because of the environment. But we had 120 people apply. We normally have about 130, 140, and 103 showed on test day, and 87 of them passed. So a robust list to choose from. So we're in good shape there.
Wonderful.
Wow.
And they had those eagles to look at
Yes,
during their
that was
tests.
done at Mooseheart.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, and moving on to our coroner's report. Coroner Russell, I'm not sure if he was online, but his report was emailed to everybody. All right. Okay, the report was emailed. I think a lot of us were able to attend.
This is Lauren with the coroner's office.
Hi, Lauren. Good morning.
Hi. I believe our file's on record with you guys, our report. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
No,
I
no
think
questions.
the coroner is lost wandering around his giant new place that
We are getting situated. Again, we want to thank everyone, and we would like to encourage anyone that has not been here to please come and visit. We're so proud, we're so happy, and we would just like to show it off.
It's a beautiful building. We were able to, I think most of us were able to tour it already.
Okay.
So great job. And your orchid was beautiful, by the way. I did pop in your office and saw that orchid.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Looks like no other questions. We'll move on. Any new business to discuss? All right. May I have a motion and second to place the written reports on file?
Madam Chair, Shepro, in lieu of a motion to place on file, I would ask unanimous consent that the reports be placed on file, thus eliminating the need for a roll call.
Is there anyone opposed to placing reports on file? Okay, we have consensus. All right. No need for executive session. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
So move.
Davis moves.
Mr. Brown moves, Mr. Davis seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, thank you, everybody, for your time today.